So Binance, which is literally the largest crypto exchange in the world, has been accused of fraud, hacking, drug trafficking, and a myriad of other unsavory activities by Reuters, one of the biggest media organizations in the world. And in short, it's caused a whole load of stink. There is a load of controversy surrounding this. There are those who hate cryptocurrency, who believe it's the spawn of the devil, or rather maybe the CIA. And then, of course, there are those who love cryptocurrency, who love the idea of decentralization and returning power to the people and taking it away from the awful Federal Reserve. And so everyone has an opinion about this new development. Today, though, I'm going to explain just what Reuters is alleging. I'm going to explain the evidence that they have to support what they're alleging. And then I'm going to explain what Binance has said in return. Now, firstly, just a little bit of context, because crypto and illicit activities do sort of go hand in hand. They've been a big part of cryptocurrency ever since it was created just over a decade ago. And while most cryptocurrencies aren't literally designed to facilitate illicit activities, well, many of them have the byproduct of being pretty good at that, at least when we compare them to fiat currency. Now, in fairness to cryptocurrency and the market that we have it as today, the vast majority of the market is not derived from illicit activities. Go back to 2012 and actually it was a rather large slice of that pie. But these days, the vast majority of people involved in crypto aren't international drug money launderers. They aren't people who are trying to hide money or hack money. They're just investors trying to find a moonshot. There's also the idea that actually many of these cryptocurrencies, and the biggest ones at least, Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example, have fully public blockchains, meaning that it's very difficult to hide money because everything's public. To make matters even harder for those trying to launder money using cryptocurrency, brokerages and exchanges have had limitations put on them by various governments that we like to call know your customer legislation. And basically what that means is that each wallet has to have a name attached to it or it can't transact. And this helps to make things even more public and even more difficult to get away with those illicit activities. With that being the case though, peer-to-peer transactions and the fact that actually no individual or no government can just turn someone's wallet off from the Bitcoin network, for example, it does mean that actually money laundering is a possibility here. It's far easier to get money overseas and over borders using Bitcoin or something like Monero than it ever has been with fiat currency. Now, as for the actual accusations levied against Binance by Reuters, well, they come in three main parts. The first is that Binance has acted as a money laundering conduit for various stolen and hacked funds. Now, they go into a lot of detail, so for all of these points and for this one as well, if you want more detail, I will link the full article by Reuters down below in the description that you can check out. Obviously, I'm not going to cover everything. That would take me well over an hour probably with this video. But for this piece here, they have linked a little bit of evidence. In particular, they've shown an example of a North Korean hacker group called Lazarus, which stole about $5 million from a small Slovakian exchange. And they showed using blockchain analysis how that money was then laundered through Binance and it got out into various wallets. And so the hackers got away with their cash. Essentially, Reuters is alleging that Binance was used specifically because they made it easy and possible for hackers to do this kind of thing. They're saying that had Binance not been there to facilitate this transaction, maybe it wouldn't have happened at all. Maybe that money would have been recovered and returned to the people it was stolen from. Basically, they're saying that this is Binance's fault, and they're not really talking much about the fault of the actual hackers of the Lazarus group from North Korea here, which does seem a little bit disingenuous. Now, the next major accusation that they make is regarding Russia and the drugs trade and the growing drugs trade in Russia, and in particular, the Hydra marketplace. Now, what Reuters is claiming is that Binance grew their market in Russia regarding cryptocurrency trades at the same time that drug trafficking absolutely exploded in the country, and that those both coincided with the rise of the Hydra marketplace. And they're basically saying that those three things are all linked directly, that Binance allowed this drug trade to flourish, that without Binance, they wouldn't have been able to grow and expand at such a rate, that Binance was profiting off of it, and that they are one of the main keys to success for these money launderers, for these drug traffickers, and for these online marketeers. Now, for this accusation, they hired a blockchain detective company, and they went out and they found a load of data, they tracked a load of wallets and transactions, and they came to the conclusion that $800 million worth of Bitcoin was laundered through Binance by drug traffickers that came from the Hydra website. Now, finally, the third accusation levied at Binance from Reuters again, and one that really doesn't stand up to any kind of criticism in my idea, this is absolutely total nonsense, is the idea that Binance and CZ, the co-founder and the CEO of the company, well, they've promoted the use of Monero and other privacy coins, and they've done this specifically because they know that those coins can be easily used to launder money with. They're claiming that Binance has been educating people about these privacy coins, which is true. That's not really an alleging, that's a fact. But they're saying that this is for sinister reasons, that they're only doing it because they want people to be able to launder their money to avoid taxes or to sell illicit products overseas, and that it has nothing to do with just privacy being actually quite an important thing these days. Now for this, again, they do have some evidence. I don't know if you can call it evidence, but that's what Reuters are claiming. And they're basically claiming that some hackers back in 2020 stole and laundered about $16 million worth of Bitcoin. And they did it using the Monero network with the XMR token. And they did it through Binance's exchange. Basically, to sum up all of these accusations, to sum up this entire article as a whole, Reuters is claiming that Binance knowingly profits from fraud, from theft, from drug dealing, money laundering, and everything else sinister that you can imagine. And they're basically saying that not only do Binance know that it happens on their platform, but that they're happy for it to happen because it means increased revenues and increased profits for the company. Reuters have also said that they found that Binance is more popular. It's a more popular exchange when it comes to illicit transactions than other exchanges, and that in total they've managed to trace $2.35 billion worth of transactions as illicit, as fraudulent or laundering or something like that, and that is a far larger amount than they've seen with any other exchange in the world. Finally, they make a specific target towards Binance's Know Your Customer procedures, which are notoriously weak compared to other exchanges and their procedures, and they're saying that Binance do this because they know it makes it easier to hide this money again. Now, Binance, of course, has not just taken all of this criticism laying down. They've come out and they've fought back a little bit, in particular with this blog post that you can see here. Now, again, it's very long. There is an awful lot said here. And if we were to cover it all in this video, it would probably take another hour. So I'm just going to tell you the important bits, tell you the specific refutations that Binance has put out, and then I'll link the rest of the post in the description so you can check it out later if you want. So in response to the first point that Reuters made, Binance have basically said that they actually helped to target the Lazarus hackers, that they worked with law enforcement, and that they always aggressively target bad actors, and that actually they are industry leaders in this area as well. Basically, they're saying that no, Reuters, you're lying. We didn't help this Lazarus hacking group launder their money through us. In fact, we worked with law enforcement agencies to try and do the opposite, to try and get them caught. Now, Binance sort of insinuate that they were successful in this. They kind of say offhand that actually they did help law enforcement recover those funds. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if the people who had those coins hacked did get everything back, but Binance make it seem like that is the case. If Binance is right there, then I hate to say it, but Reuters' first point is pretty much rendered completely moot. That entire accusation relies on the fact that Binance not only allowed those hackers to get away with their money, but that they actually helped them. If it turns out that the opposite is true, and there should be some evidence somewhere regarding this, maybe emails, maybe phone calls, maybe evidence of the funds being returned in the end, well then Reuters' first point really won't stand up to any scrutiny. Now, regarding the second point, Binance again pretty much just denied everything. They even went so far as to say that they actually employ the people who took down the Hydra marketplace, and so it's very unlikely that they were profiting from the growth of the Hydra marketplace. Why would they hire the people who destroyed it and who took away all that money from them? They also say explicitly that they work with the Drug Enforcement Agency of the United States and other federal agencies in the US and around the rest of the world as well. Basically, they're just saying that, no, you're wrong. We actually work with an awful lot of different law enforcement agencies to try and stop the things that you're accusing us of. Now, this, again, should be actually quite easy to verify for Binance. They should have emails or some kind of correspondence with these various agencies to prove what they're saying. If that is the case, if Binance is telling the truth here, then again, Reuters' second point really wouldn't stand up to scrutiny either. Now, regarding the blockchain detective company that worked with Reuters, or for Reuters, I should say, to gather that evidence against Binance, well, Binance basically just said that actually their data is wrong. The calculations they've come to is wrong. It's false. And again, the blockchain is a very public thing indeed. It shouldn't be too hard to verify this, but we're probably going to need some kind of an independent audit by a third party who doesn't have connections to either side to actually verify whether or not this is true. And that's likely to take some time. Finally, Binance defends not only the idea of privacy and privacy coins, but also Monero in particular. And here, I hate to say it, but Binance is 100% in the right. Reuters has absolutely no place in hell going around claiming that anyone desiring any kind of privacy is automatically a drug launderer or something like that. I think it's pretty ridiculous that they went that far in the first place. And it almost discredits the entire article that they put out. Not quite, but almost. Binance mentioned how actually there are many different reasons to desire privacy, that defense and protecting yourself from even your own government is not an unwise thing to do at all. There are numerous and many governments around the world who have done horrible, inexplicable things to their own citizens, and people wanting to protect themselves against that eventuality isn't actually a bad thing. They've also pointed out how actually the idea of just two customers being anonymous and not giving away their identity to other third parties is very similar to things like end-to-end encryption on channels like WhatsApp or Telegram, where people talk with each other and they just want to keep their conversations private. That just because they want privacy, that doesn't mean that actually they're engaged in illicit activity and they're bad people. Again, I think Binance is absolutely right on this. There is nothing wrong with privacy, and in a world where governments are going more and more authoritarian, especially with the way that the COVID lockdowns happened around the world, well, this really isn't a bad thing at all, and Reuters has no place whatsoever criticizing Monero or any other privacy coin in this way. Now, for the most part, most of the ways in which Binance tried to refute Reuters there are pretty much just them saying, no, you're wrong, this is what happened instead. Until we get more evidence, until we have maybe an independent third party auditing everything that Reuters is claiming and Binance is refuting, well, we're not really going to know who is right there, I'm afraid. It's also worth noting that actually Binance is the biggest exchange in the world. It does more volume and has more tokens than many other exchanges. And so it makes sense actually that most illicit activities that happen within the crypto sphere will happen on Binance as well. Reuters hasn't come out with any damning evidence saying that it is disproportionately large. They're not saying that 20% of transactions on Binance are fraudulent or anything like that. They're just saying that there are more fraudulent transactions on Binance than on other exchanges, conveniently leaving out the fact that there are more transactions in general on Binance than on other stages. On top of that, most of Reuters' evidence against Binance is really circumstantial. It's more things like people use Binance to enable their criminal acts, rather than Binance encourages these people to use Binance for their criminal acts. And as a result, you can't really prove any kind of intention behind Binance here. They could just have weaker processes that are easier to exploit, and that doesn't necessarily make them guilty of anything. Now, from my point of view, Binance is not perfect. In fact, it's actually quite a dodgy exchange. I personally don't use it because I don't trust the company, I don't trust their institutions, and I don't trust them with my money or my digital tokens. And frankly, I think you should be really serious about wondering whether or not you trust them as well. I certainly wouldn't be surprised at all if it turned out that Binance did just turn a blind eye to all of these illicit activities. It is the kind of thing that corporations do time after time after time. And as a company which is headquartered in pretty much nowhere at the moment and is trying to move to what basically amounts to a tax haven with the loosest regulations possible, this really isn't something that I would put past their leadership to be okay with happening behind closed doors. That doesn't mean that Reuters has any damning evidence here. There is no killing blow piece of information that Reuters have. There is no email from CZ to another exec at Binance saying, let's allow these hackers to launder their money through our platform. Think of the profits we could generate. I also, again, just have to mention that I think Reuters entirely discredit that entire article when they start to attack privacy and XMR and Monero in particular. It really had no relevance to the rest of what they were alleging, and it just made it all seem a little bit ridiculous and more like some kind of ideological crusade against crypto as a whole than it was about targeting Binance as a bad actor within the crypto sphere. As usual, though, I'm just going to caution you all to be a bit careful. Remember the old mantra, not your keys, not your coins. If you aren't storing your digital coins on your own personal wallets, then they are not entirely safe. there is no limit against a company going rogue and just walking off with everything you own. Binance is a little bit dodgy, and in particular, they are really not too on good terms with many governments out there. In the UK, for example, they're pretty much as close to you can get as banned as an exchange, and that means that actually consumer protections for you are very, very poor as well. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to bless the YouTube algorithm. It really does help. If you want to join our exclusive community, then check out our Patreon. You get access to our Discord server and extra content like access to my portfolio and buy and sell alerts for all my own investments. Also, make sure to check out the link in the description to Masterworks. It can help you protect your portfolio against market turmoil through fractional shares of art from world-famous artists. Art has historically proven to be uncorrelated to the markets, so it's a really valuable resource with the markets falling every week. There's also a link in the description to I Trust Capital, which helps you to invest in crypto through your tax-advantaged IRA, which could literally save you thousands. If you, like me, think crypto going down is a buy-in opportunity, then now is the perfect time to join I Trust Capital. Thank you all for watching. Stay stoic. Until next time.